Welcome to Business 210, Principles of Management, online / hybrid / face-to-face sort of with Professor Joe Lane. Okay, you've listened to the introductory video. If you didn't, go back and do it. Don't even think about getting into these chapters and these chapter videos unless you've listened to the introductory video, because it really lays out everything for you, as you know, if you've already done that. Okay, chapter 1. I entitled chapter 1, Here's Management. Basically what the author is doing is he's just saying, look, this is the foundation chapter, this is the first chapter, so I'm just going to tell you everything I know about management. And then we'll build on that chapters 2 through chapter 15 or 16 or whatever the last chapter is in the book. So I put this, if you are looking at your study notes, the first thing I put in your study notes, you can't read this, but the first thing I put in your study notes was just this little sheet of paper having to do with chapter 1. And this is kind of the main things he talks about in chapter 1. So I think I'm going to take my pen, and as we go through here and talk about these things, I'm going to cross them out. And when I get them all crossed out, we'll know that we've finished chapter 1. One of the ways you can learn about things is by learning the words that are associated with it. And if like in the introduction to business, we learned what a business was, what profit was, what revenue was, what goods, outsourcing, things like that. Well, in management, there are words that go along with management, and there's, ideas that go along with management. So he wants to kind of introduce us to most of those, or a lot of those, in chapter 1. So let's start off probably where we need to begin. What's management? Now, some of you may be managers. I don't think I'm off the camera. If I am, I'm over here. Some of you may be managers. So what are managers? We talked about in the introductory video, businesses can't operate without management because of things that managers do. So we know they're important, but what are managers? What is management? Now, definition, let's look at that first. That's right down here, and I'll scratch it off in a minute. But let's look at what the definition of management is. This is something you need to know for test number 1. Okay, kind of getting the feel already? This is one of those know items. Definition is the pursuit of organizational goals. Do you have goals in your life? You should, and I know you do. Do I have goals in my life? Yes. Do businesses have goals? If you work at a particular place, does that particular department or area have goals? Does your whole store have goals? Does the whole company have goals? Yeah, there's goals at all levels. So, the pursuit of organizational goals effectively and efficiently by integrating the work of people through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling the organization's resources. Is that an important definition? You betcha. Is it going to be on test number 1? Yeah, of course. All right. So let's look. I don't beat every definition to death, but we're just getting started, so let's make sure. So I think we got it. The pursuit of organizational goals. So management is making sure that companies at all different levels accomplish the goals that they're trying to achieve. Effectively and efficiently. Now let's look at those two words. I want you to be familiar with, I want you to know the definition of management, but I want you to be familiar with what being effective and efficient is. Efficiency, the means of attaining organizational goals using resources wisely. If you're efficient, that means that you're using the least resources possible to accomplish a goal. Is that what you want to do? Sure. Because if you overuse your resources and to accomplish your goal, you may not be profitable. You may be using so much resources there you don't have it for other places. So it's being efficient. A lot of things that you do, you want to do them efficiently. Okay, effectively, the ends, achieving the results. You want to be efficient. You want to use the minimum resources that you have to use, but you want to be effective. You want to achieve the goals, or the goal. So I want you to be familiar with what efficiency and effectiveness is. The pursuit of organizational goals efficiently and effectively by integrating the work of people. Putting the work of people together. Making sure that people are working together. How do you integrate the work of people? Through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So as a manager, you're integrating the work of people. You're having people work together in your department, in your division, in your store, in your company, whatever it is you're responsible for. You're integrating their work so you're accomplishing the goals, and you're doing it by planning, organizing, leading, and controlling the organization's resources. Organization has a number of resources. The most important resource any organization has are its people. Okay, so we've done definition. So I can get that one. Off of here. All right. He talks about, and I do it in our handout in your study notes. The multiplier effect. Managers create value. Managers are valuable because managers can take 1 + 1 and make 3. In other words, if managers integrate the work of people effectively through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, the sum of all is greater than the individual efforts put together. It's a multiplier effect. Does that kind of make sense? Good managers create value and they're in high demand. You can take the work of several people and do remarkable things with it. That's what that's talking about. I'd be familiar with what the multiplier effect is as well. Okay. He says, next he talks about, I don't know if I put the multiplier effect, I don't know if I put that up here or not. I may just do that, but make sure you're familiar with that. Oh, something I just happened to see as I looked here, is management an art or is it a science? The answer is yes. Is there a science? Well, first of all, what is science? Science is proven truths, things that have been tried and proven to work through science. When a doctor goes in and does surgery, there's a science to that. There is a body of knowledge that has been proven to be true, and it works. And that's what they use when they perform, let's say, that surgery. If you're building a road, there's a body of knowledge that's been built up on how to lay that road. That's the science. Okay, what's art? That's the creative part, isn't it? It's kind of the creative part, kind of the abstract part. All right. So a doctor is performing a surgery using the body of knowledge, but sometimes in performing that surgery, are the skills of that doctor important? The skills of their hands? The skills of their fingers? Is it important for those doctors, maybe as they're doing a surgery, if something is found that wasn't expected, that they know how to deal with it? If you're building that road and something comes up unexpected, you have the creativity, the imagination, the ingenuity to be able to deal with it? Yeah. So is management a science? Yes. As a matter of fact, chapter 2, we're going to be talking about the body of knowledge that has come about in the world of management. But there's also an art to it as well. Because you remember, managers manage people, and there's an art to working with people. Okay. So management is both an art and a science. So we'll take that off. I see challenges over here. I'm going to scratch that off. I see this. What are seven challenges that a manager can look forward to? Now, is this bad? No. It's just saying, look, in 2020, if you're going to be a manager, there are certain challenges you're going to face. That should be exciting. Might it be frustrating sometimes? Might it be hard sometimes? Yeah. Might it be fun though? The answer is yes. What are some challenges that managers are going to be facing? Number one, and I'd be familiar with the fact that management, I think I said, it's both an art and a science, and I'd be familiar with these challenges. Now, let me stop again because we're just doing this for the first time. Now, you say be familiar with it. How might you ask that question? I might ask it this way. Which of the following is not a challenge that managers will be facing? And I might list 5 of them. 4 of them are real ones we've talked about or going to talk about here. And 1 may be something I just made up. So that would be using the 7 challenges. Excuse me. That would be a way I could ask that question, say in a multiple choice, or I could do a true false. Okay, what are the 7 challenges? Competitive advantage. You know what a competitive advantage is? As a business, do you need a competitive advantage over whom? Your competition. Do you need a competitive advantage in something as it relates to your good or service, your product? The answer is yes. Now, are you going to have a competitive advantage in everything? I doubt it. Very few products and very few companies have a competitive advantage in everything. But you've got to have a competitive advantage in something. Because if you ain't got no competitive advantage whatsoever, why would anybody come to you? Okay. All right, number 2, diversity. We are in a diverse culture, in a diverse nation. We have a lot of diversity. Diversity is good. Now, you know, if you stop and think about it this way, in 2020, is our nation diverse? A lot of different ethnic groups and that sort of thing? The answer is yes. Should a business be that same way? Should a business reflect the diversity of the nation? Or let's go with this, customers. If you have a diverse set of customers, should your business reflect in their employees, management and non-managerial employees, should that business reflect that diversity? The answer is yes. Now let me tell you, I happen to really like 55-year-old white males, or white males that are over the age of 55. I'm possibly could even be one of those, okay? Do I think white males over 55 are good? Yeah, I'm all for them. But what if a business was made up all of white males over 55? Would that work? Of course not. Of course not. You got to have diversity. Just like you have diversity of customers, you have to have diversity in the business. A couple of things about that I want you to be familiar with. Diversity, the way I like to define that is all the ways that people are alike and unlike. Jot that down. Just to be familiar with. Diversity has to do with all the ways that people are alike and unlike. Okay? And the second thing is, when we talk about diversity, do you know what the fastest growing minority is in America? Hispanic. I think there's some studies that says by 2040 or something like that, don't hold me to this, I'm going to memory, Hispanics will make up over 30% of our population in the United States, maybe 2050, okay? So 2 things that I want you to be familiar with. Diversity is all the ways that we are alike and unlike, and the fastest growing minority in America are Hispanics. Globalization. Businesses used to be able to work kind of in an area. But now with all the technology and everything we have, some of your best customers may be in Hong Kong. Some of your biggest competition may come out of Brazil. Businesses are global today. Businesses are all over the world. Walmart is everywhere. McDonald's is everywhere. Toyota is everywhere. So one of the things is the globalization of business. That's a challenge though. It's a good challenge, but it's a challenge. Would you like to maybe be a manager in a foreign nation for a company? Something you might be interested in. IT, information technology. Don't even have to go there. You know how quickly information technology changes. Is that a challenge? Yes. Are you up to it? Probably. Ethical standards. People want business to be ethical. Ethics have a tendency to change over time. Ethics are different in different nations, so that makes ethics a little more difficult to deal with than you would think. Okay. Sustainability. We want the good life for ourselves. Do you want it for your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren? The answer is yes. So let's make sure that we do things the way we're doing them so we can sustain this lifestyle we have. And our happiness in life goals. Look, one of the challenges that you're going to have is this. You have certain goals for your life. Do you want to accomplish those goals? Sure. How about happiness? I like to use the term joy. Are we going to be happy all the time? Probably not. But you can have joy all the time. Okay. So I just want you to be familiar with what are some challenges that you're going to face as a manager. You need to have a competitive advantage. You need to recognize and use diversity in your business. Be familiar with globalization. Business is global. Understand the changing technology. Realize the importance of ethics. Understand that we want our businesses to be sustainable and our own happiness and life goals are important. So that's the challenges that businesses face. I think a lot of them are fun challenges. Okay. So let's go on to I'm just kind of going down through my sheet here. What is it that managers do? Well, we've already got a hint of that. Because back in the definition we said integrating the work of people through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So what do managers do? What are 4 functions that managers perform? Managers plan, managers organize, managers lead, and managers control. Which managers do that? They all do. All managers plan, organize, lead, and control. Okay. What is planning? Do you plan? Sure you do. Because most of you are juggling a lot of balls. A lot of you are going to school, you're working, you've got family, you've got other activities, you've got organizations, you may be very involved in your church, you may be very involved in other things. That being the case, you got a plan. Planning, establishing your goals. Ooh, remember we talked about how important goals are. Establishing your goals and how to achieve them. Organizing, arranging the task, arranging the people, arranging the resources to be able to meet those goals. Leading, you got to be able to motivate and direct and train and coach employees. You've got to lead them. You don't lead people by telling them what to do. You lead them by training and organizing and coaching and mentoring and things like that. And then controlling. Oh, I'm going to control you. It's not like that. It's just you got to be sure that you've got these goals at your department level, your store level. You got to make sure that your business is moving towards those goals. Does that make sense? And if you start getting off course, you got to bring it back into course or on course. I think you need to know the 4 functions that all managers perform. 2 no items so far, the 4 functions that all managers perform, and the definition of management. Okay. Now, I see something here that I happened to run across that was up here kind of on that first page, and I was about to get away from it. Let me find the 4 functions that managers perform. We got that. I looked up here at task, achievement, and people. And this is kind of the first part of this handout here, right after whether management's an art or a science. Managers have to be task-oriented. There are certain tasks that managers have to get done or see that those tasks are done. They have to be achievement oriented. Not only do they have to make sure that certain tasks are performed, but they are achieving what needs to be achieved. And they got to be people oriented, because remember, people are the ones that's normally going to be the ones that's going to be doing most of the work to accomplish those tasks. Managers are task oriented, achievement oriented, and people oriented. I'd be familiar with that. Okay, I'm going to flip over to the back side of my handout for chapter 1. You're just, if you printed yours out, the next page. Levels of management. Well, if this were an organization right here, I'm going to make it like a pyramid. Okay, what would you call this up here? Well, I think I'd call that up there, I'd probably call that the top. Pretty complicated, huh? Okay. What do you think you'd call this in here? Middle? Me too. And then down here, this level, I would call it first line or supervisory first line management. And then you have employees. Now, employees are not managers. Are they important? We already talked about that. We know how important they are. But you really have 3 levels of management. You have your supervisory or your first line managers. They're the ones that manage non-managerial employees. Then you've got middle management, which manages other managers, and top management, which manages other managers. So they're top management. They make the long-term decisions and everything. You know, they carry out the shorter-term plans and things to accomplish what long-term top management is set up. And these folks take care of day-to-day things. Short-term operating decisions. I would just be familiar with the 3 levels of management: top, middle, supervisory. Okay. Now, areas of management. Now, I know I'm going crazy here, but remember, I said the author, he just talks about here's management. The areas of, there are general managers and there are functional managers. A general manager, let's use Ryan Chevrolet. What do you think? Do you think the general manager of Ryan Chevrolet is a general manager or a functional manager? Well, that wasn't too hard, was it? A general manager oversees several areas. The store manager at Walmart in Monroe is a general manager. What about the manager of the shoe department? What about the manager of the pharmacy? What about the manager of electronics? Those would be functional managers. Now, is one better than another? No, they're just different. General managers are responsible for several functional areas. Functional managers are responsible for a particular activity. I'd be familiar with the 3 levels. Oh, by the way, if you've got the brand new book, he has 4 levels of management. He does another one below first line of supervisory. He calls it team leaders or something. Forget that. The author went crazy. There's 3 levels of management: top, middle, first line. Be familiar with. There are 2 areas of management: functional, general. Be familiar with. 3 types of organizations. If you work for Walmart, you're working for a for-profit organization. They're trying to make a profit. A profit for whom? Their owners. If you work for a non-profit organization, what would one of those be? Delta Community College, Salvation Army, United Way. I go to North Middle Baptist Church, non-profit organization. A non-profit organization is an organization, they're not trying to make a profit for their owners. They don't have owners, but they're trying to provide for a cause or a belief or something like that. And then you have a mutual benefit organization. That would be like a union or some type of say a management association, a hunting club, a fishing club, a shopping club if you have one, okay? This would be an organization that's just for the mutual benefit of its members. I'd be familiar with the different types of organizations. A for-profit, they're making revenue, providing goods and services, profit for their owners. A nonprofit, they're offering services. Primarily, it's for what they're doing is trying to accomplish not a profit for their owners, but trying to accomplish a purpose or a cause. Mutual benefit would be an organization where the members got together for their particular mutual benefit. All right. Okay, so those are the different types of organizations. Wow, he just keeps going, doesn't he? 3 types of managerial roles. Okay, managers play certain roles. I want you to be familiar with these. Let's look at those. Interpersonal roles. Interpersonal means managers interact with other people. Let's take our chancellor here at Delta. One role that our chancellor plays is an Broadwater. I think we have a brand new acting chancellor. Our chancellor that we've had for the last few years, Chancellor Epps, has retired. I think it's Broadwater. If I mispronounce that, I'll learn it. He has an interpersonal role. He interacts with people. He's kind of the figurehead for our organization. When they talk to Chancellor Broadwater, he speaks for the organization. He's kind of figurehead. When you see him, you're seeing the organization. He has that leadership. Now, aside from an interpersonal role, interacting with others, he has an informational role. He receives information, he puts out information, he disseminates information. He is a gatherer and a provider of information. And in the decision-making role, he makes decisions that not only affect himself, but affect Delta and affect the employees of Delta. I did a pretty good job on the handout, kind of letting you know what the interpersonal, informational, and decisional roles, kind of what makes up part of each one of those. I got too quiet and lost some of my lights, so let's put my lights back on. I'd be familiar with the 3 different types of roles. I think it's time to look here. Types of organizations, we've done that. Levels of management, we've done that. Managerial roles, we've done that. Areas of management, we've done that. Hey, we're getting down pretty close to the end of this thing for chapter 1. Let's see what else he talks about. Skills that managers should have. Okay. We said that managers perform 4 functions. Managers plan, organize, lead, and control. And we said we need to know that. But we said also managers have to have certain skills. What's the difference between a function and a skill? Well, a function, plan, organize, lead, control, those are things that managers do, right? They plan, they organize, they lead, they control. Now, by the way, managers also talk to people, they talk on the phone, they write letters, they do stuff like that, just like anybody does. But in their position as a manager, the 4 functions that they're performing are planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Okay. Skills must be the thing that they need to have between their ears to be able to perform those 4 functions. So what skills do managers need to have? Technical skills. They need to be able to do certain things. If you were the director of the computing center for a company, should you be able to recognize a computer? Should you be pretty skilled with the technical workings of a computer? And and with technology? Well, the answer would be yes. Because if you don't, how can you mentor and coach and work with employees if you don't have that knowledge? If you're up here at the very top, let's say you're the chief financial officer, do you need technical skills as well? The answer would be yes. Because as a chief financial officer, and that was a position I held for years and years and years in several organizations, The chief financial officer is in charge of budgeting. You've got to have budgetary skills, putting budgets together. Okay. What's the second skill you have to have? Conceptual skills. To be able to think analytically, to be able to see the big picture. Because if you are at whatever level of management, and there's a goal out there, and you've got to see the big picture of how things are going to have to work together in your store, or your division, or wherever you are, to make sure that goal is accomplished. So you've got to be able to see the big picture. By the way, should you share that big picture with your employees? Yeah. That way it becomes not your picture, it becomes all of your picture, and it becomes all of your goals. It's a really good management technique. Okay, but conceptual skills are being able to analyze stuff, being analytical, be able to think things through and see the big picture. The third one has to do with truth number 3. You got to have people skills. You got to be able to make good decisions as it relates to people. You got to be able to communicate with people. You got to like people. You got to have people type skills. You got to be able to interact well with people. I want you to know the 4 functions that managers have to perform, or that they do perform: plan, organize, lead, control. I also want you to know the 3 skills that managers have to have: conceptual skills, technical skills, and people or human relation skills. Okay? All right. The last thing he taught, that's a good word, huh? The last thing he talks about in here, he says, I want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. So wait a minute, what is entrepreneurship? That seems like a funny thing to be talking about in the very first of a book on management. But entrepreneurship, an entrepreneur is someone who creates a new business. We talk about entrepreneurs are those that own and normally operate a business. And he says, look, I want to make a little bit of distinction here. He said you have an entrepreneur and you have an intrapreneur. Now I'm looking at my notes. An entrepreneur, one that sees the opportunity for new services or new products and launches a business. That's an entrepreneur. We know about those. He says an intrapreneur works in an existing business and sees opportunities. So he's saying entrepreneurship is important even in an existing business and even in management within an existing business, because an intrapreneur within that business may see the opportunity for additional goods or additional services that may break out into a new department or a new business altogether for that company. Okay, that's kind of chapter 1. This chapter has more stuff, broad stuff, than any of the other chapters, because he just gives us an overview of everything. And this little sheet here kind of helped us with that. I will officially cross off management skills and intrapreneur. Now, as I'm looking at this, I know there's a couple of things in chapter 1 we need to know. We need to know the 4 functions that managers perform. We need to know the definition of management, and we need to know the skills that managers have to have. And then I think that was the three know items in chapter 1. And then we had a number of be familiar with items. So now that we've done chapter 1, what you need to do as you start studying for test number 1, which is chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, you want to concentrate your studying on those things that you need to know and you need to be familiar with. As you're going through these chapters with me, as we're talking about them, you need to have your ears perk up. Okay, what's he talking about being familiar with? What's he talking about knowing? Because these are really the most important things. And let's be honest, in chapter 1, if you know the things that and you're familiar with these other things, task, achievement, people-oriented, the levels of management, the types of organizations, if you're just familiar with those things, you have a pretty good idea now about the terminology of management and kind of a good look at the overview of what management does. You really do. So you're off to a great start with chapter 1. Okay, I think that is chapter 1. You know the drill if you watched the introductory video. If you didn't, make sure you do. Professor Pierce needs a loud noise to know that we have finished a chapter. Professor Pierce, my executive producer here of the videos, probably will go viral. These will probably become worldwide here before long. All right, so I'm going to do a big clap of the hands. That's the way he gets the loud noise. And I'm going to see you back in just a few minutes after I go back to my makeup artist and everybody that's waiting to get me all ready for chapter 2. I'll get into chapter 2 with you in just a minute.